Her husband owed me thousands and vanished every time I asked for it. So I drove out to repossess my own equipment and found his wife blocking my trailer with a loader refusing to let me leave with it. What she offered me instead turned into the hardest and most unexpected 30 days of my year. I had the flatbed backed halfway across the yard before she came out of the barn and put a loader in my way. Not near my way, not beside it, right in front of the trailer ramps. Bucket dropped low, engine knocking like it had not warmed up yet. I eased my truck into park and sat there with both hands on the wheel. The hay baler was sitting behind the machine shed, red paint faded, pickup teeth still dusty from the last field that had worked it. It was mine. Or at least it was supposed to be mine again since her husband had borrowed it under a written deal and then paid me exactly nothing. I had the papers on the passenger seat. I had chains in the bed. I had burned $40 in fuel just getting there. Regan climbed down from the loader like she had been waiting for me. Work jeans, dusty boots, gloves tucked under one arm. Her hair was pulled back, and there was no soft look on her face. "You're not taking that baler today," she said. I opened my door and stepped out. "Morning to you too." "I mean it, Weston." "So do I." I reached into the cab and pulled out the folder. "Your husband signed for it in March, 30-day rental, then another 2 weeks, then another week after he promised me cash from the calf sale. That was 2 months ago." Regan looked at the folder like she already knew every page inside it. "If you take that machine today," she said, "this farm dies before the month is over." I let out a breath and looked past her at the field beyond the barn. The hay was standing high and ready, with the kind of color a man likes to see when he's counting bales in his head. "That isn't my fault," I said. "No, it's not." That stopped me for half a second. Most people came at me with excuses: weather, banks, bad checks, broken trucks, family trouble. Regan didn't do that. She stood there flat-footed, blocking me with a loader that looked older than both of us, and told me the truth like it cost her something. "I can't keep being the easy guy," I said. "I've got my own notes due. I've got repairs waiting. That baler needs work, and I can't even start on it while it's sitting here making me poorer." "I know." "You know." She pulled the folded yellow pad from her back pocket. "I know what he owes you. I know what he owes Miller Feed. I know what's late at County Ag Bank. I know which tire shop won't extend him another dime. And I know the only clean money coming in this month is from that hay." I looked at the pad, then back at her. She walked closer and held it out, not shy, not begging, just direct. 30 days, she said. I did not take the pad yet. 30 days for what? A work plan. Not a favor, not mercy. She tapped the paper with one gloved finger. "We cut the north field first. Buyer named Vance wants horse hay. If we deliver dry and clean, I've got cattle to move off the south lot before that fence gives up. There's an auction next Saturday where I can sell the old grain drill and the spare feed trailer. You help me get through the hard jobs and you get paid first from that hay check." I almost laughed, but not because it was funny. "You want me to do more work for the people who haven't paid me for the last work? You want me to deal with me," she said, "not him." The barn door creaked behind her, and that was when Grady finally showed up. He came out pulling on a cap, moving slow like the morning had offended him. He was close to 60, with a belly over his belt, and that easy smile some men use when they think every mess can be talked down. "Weston?" he called. "Come on now, no need for all this." I didn't answer. He looked at Regan, then at the loader, then at my trailer. "Honey, move that thing. Let me handle him." Her jaw tightened. Grady gave me a smile. "She gets fired up, you know how it is." "Regan, be nice to the man." I hated the way he said it. Not loud, not cruel, worse than that, like she was a tool he had not picked up right. Regan did not move. I looked at Grady. "You told me you'd pay me after the calf sale. The market came in low. You told me the bank transfer was already sent. Clerical thing. You told me you'd bring cash to my place last Friday." He spread his hands. I got tied up. Regan stared at the ground for 1 second, then looked at me again. 30 days, she said. Written terms, payment schedule, no side deals through him. You get access to the baler, the feed trailer, and whatever else you need to finish the work. If I miss the first payment, you take the machine. Grady's smile slipped. "Now, hold on." Regan turned her head. "No, you held on long enough." The yard went quiet except for the loader engine rattling. I took the yellow pad from her. The numbers were not pretty, but they were real. Field acres, buyer name, delivery window, auction list, fuel estimate, parts needed, first payment to me circled twice. She had done the math. Grady had done the damage. I folded the paper and slid it into my folder. I write it up, you sign it, he doesn't. Grady stepped forward. It's my farm. Regan looked at him, then started acting like it wasn't. I went back to my truck, got a blank contract sheet from the glove box, and wrote the terms on the hood while Regan stood beside me. Grady paced near the barn, muttering, but he did not come close enough to stop it. When she signed, her hand did not shake. I loaded my chains back into the truck and pulled the flatbed around the loader instead of toward the baler. Regan watched from the yard, arms crossed, face still hard. I drove away without the machine I came to take, but her signed plan was on the seat beside me. And for the first time all morning, I wasn't sure whether I'd just made a smart business move or stepped into the hardest 30 days of my year. By 6 a.m. the next morning, Regan was already standing by the north field with a grease gun in one hand and her phone in the other. I pulled up in my service truck, not the flatbed. That mattered to me more than I wanted to admit. A flatbed said I was there to take. The service truck said I was there to work. She noticed. No trailer today, she said. Don't make me regret it. I won't. The first problem showed itself before we even got the hay bine into the field. One of the irrigation lines along the lower strip had a bad split, spraying water sideways into the lane instead of across the dry patch. She shut the pump down, walked straight to the break, and crouched in the mud like she had done it 100 times. Clamps bad, she said. I looked over her shoulder. Pipes weren't too. I know. Clamp is what we can afford. That was how the whole first week went. Not what was perfect, what could hold. We worked 2 hours on that line, hands wet, knees dirty, sun climbing fast behind us. She didn't hover while I fixed things, and she didn't act helpless. She handed me the right wench before I asked for it. When I tightened the new clamp too far, she said, "Back it off a little, or it'll crack by Thursday." I looked at her. What? Are you always this bossy when people are about to break my pipe? Yes. I laughed once, and she almost smiled, but then the pump kicked back on, and we both watched the line hold. That was the first small win. By noon, we were cutting hay. Regan drove the tractor like someone who listened to the machine. Not fast, not careless. She knew where the field dipped, where the ground stayed soft, where the old rocks still sat near the fence line. I followed behind, checking the cut, making notes in my head, trying not to stare every time she leaned out of the cab to look back. It wasn't that she was trying to be noticed. That was the thing. She wasn't. She was focused, sun on her face, dust on her shirt, one hand steady on the wheel. I'd seen plenty of people perform toughness when bills came due. Regan wasn't performing anything. She was just tired and sharp and not giving the farm away without a fight. 2 days later, the south fence gave out. I got her call while I was fueling my own tractor at home. Cattle are pushing through the lower corner, she said. If they get onto Hutton's soybean ground, I'll never hear the end of it. I'm 10 minutes out. Bring wire. When I got there, she was already in the lot with a sorting stick, moving the lead cows away from the weak spot. Grady was nowhere around. I found that out without asking, because Regan didn't mention him once. We spent the afternoon sweating through our shirts, setting temporary posts, pulling wire, and moving the cattle into the west pasture. One calf slipped past me and took off down the lane. Regan jumped into the side-by-side and yelled, "Get in or start running." I got in. She drove like she had a personal argument with every rut on that farm. We cut the calf off near the creek crossing, and I hopped out waving my arms like an idiot while she eased it back toward the gate. When it finally joined the herd, she shut off the engine and leaned back, breathing hard. "Are you always this graceful?" she asked. I was doing advanced livestock strategy. "You look like a scarecrow with truck payments." I wanted to answer, but I was laughing too hard. That kind of thing started happening more. Not flirting exactly, not the way people talk when they're trying to start something. It was more like we were both too tired to keep our guard polished. At the feed store, the guard came back quick. We were picking up twine, hydraulic fluid, and a bearing I had argued we needed before the baler gave us trouble. Regan was at the counter checking prices when Otis, the owner, leaned on his elbow and gave me a look. "Seeing a lot of your truck over at Regan's place lately." Regan went still. I kept my eyes on the receipt. "That's because they've got hay to cut." Otis smirked. That all they're working off? The store got quiet in that ugly small-town way where nobody says anything but everybody hears it. I put my pen down and looked at him. Put the bearing on my account, put the twine on hers, and don't talk like that about a woman standing 3 feet from you. Otis's face changed. Not much, but enough. Reagan didn't thank me in the store. She just picked up the twine and walked out. Outside, she loaded it into the truck bed harder than she needed to. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "Yeah, I did. I can handle Otis." "I know." That made her look at me. I shut the tailgate. "That wasn't me saving you. That was me not letting him be cheap with your name while I stood there." For a second, she didn't say anything. Then she nodded once and got in the truck. The baler jammed on day 9. Of course it did. We were finally getting clean windrows. The weather was holding, and Vance had confirmed he could take the first load if we delivered by Friday. Then the baler started knocking wrong, and the pickup clogged so tight it looked like the field had tried to climb inside. I killed the PTO and climbed down. Reagan was already there, gloves on. Bearing? No, plug first, then maybe bearing. We worked side by side in the heat, pulling packed hay loose handful by handful. Dust stuck to the sweat on my arms. Reagan had a streak of grease across her cheek and didn't know it. I almost told her, then decided not to because I liked seeing one thing she had not managed to control. She caught me looking anyway. "What? You've got grease on your face. So do you. Mine's professional. Yours looks expensive." We got the plug cleared, replaced the bearing, and lost 3 hours by dark. We were still short of where we needed to be. Reagan stood by the gate, looking at the field like she could force more daylight out of the sky. "We cut the east strip first tomorrow," she said. I shook my head. "Northwest dries faster." She turned on me. "If we send dusty hay, the buyer docks us. If we wait too long, the field loses quality and he docks you anyway." She looked mad enough to throw a wrench at me. Then she pulled out her notebook, flipped 2 pages, and checked her own moisture notes. "Fine," she said. I raised my eyebrows. "Fine. Don't enjoy it." "I'm trying not to." "You're failing." The first load was stacked by Friday morning. Not perfect, not pretty, but real. Square bales tight enough to travel. Straps checked twice. Paperwork tucked into a plastic sleeve under the seat. Reagan stood beside the loaded trailer with both hands on her hips, looking at it like she didn't trust good news yet. Grady showed up right as we were checking the lights. He walked out of the house with sunglasses on and a coffee cup in his hands like he had supervised the whole thing from a throne. "Well," he said, "looks like my farm still knows how to work." Reagan didn't answer. Grady looked at me. "Guess you two have been getting along fine." There was something under it. Not angry yet, not exactly. More like a man seeing control slip and trying to make it dirty so he could grab it again. I hooked the safety chains and stood up. "We've been working." He smiled at Reagan. "That what we're calling it?" Her face went cold. "Grady, the first load is ready because Weston showed up. I showed up, and you didn't." His smile fell. I expected him to fire back, but he just looked at the trailer, then at the house, then back at me. "Just remember who owns this place." Reagan stepped closer to him, calm and steady. "I remember who almost lost it." Nobody spoke after that. I climbed into my truck. Reagan got in on the passenger side with the delivery papers on her lap. As we rolled out of the yard, the baler sat behind us, still dusty, still on the shed, still the center of everything. But the first hay load was moving, and for the first time since I had backed that flatbed into her yard, the 30-day plan felt like more than paper. The first load should have been the easy part. That was what I kept telling myself as we pulled out of Reagan's yard with the trailer behind us and the delivery papers on her lap. We had fought the field, the fence, the baler, and half the town's mouth. Now all we had to do was get clean hay to Vance, get the buyer to sign, and make sure the first payment went where Reagan's plan said it would go. But Reagan kept looking through the paperwork, not reading it once, reading it over and over. "What's wrong?" I asked. She didn't answer right away. She flipped the sleeve open, checked the copy of the invoice, then checked the folder under her boot. "The agreement isn't here. You had it yesterday." "I know I had it yesterday. Maybe it's at the house." She turned toward me, and the look on her face made my stomach tighten. "It was in the blue folder on the kitchen table," she said. "Grady asked where we were delivering this morning." I kept my eyes on the road. "You think he took it?" "I think he doesn't ask questions unless he already has a plan." We drove another mile before she called the buyer.
Her voice stayed calm, but her knuckles were pale around the phone. "Mr. Vance, it's Reagan Rohr. We're on the road with the first load. I need you to confirm something for me. Has anyone contacted you about changing the payment account?" I heard a man's voice through the speaker, low and confused. Reagan closed her eyes for 1 second. When she asked again, "No," she said. "Do not process that change. I handled the cut, the bailing, and the delivery. The account listed in the original agreement is the farm operating account." She listened again, then looked at me. "Thank you. We'll be there in 40 minutes. She ended the call and stared out the windshield. "He sent a new routing number last night," she said. I tightened my grip on the wheel. His account, one I don't control. The road ahead shimmered with heat. I wanted to say something useful, but there wasn't much to say. If Grady pulled the payment away, I didn't get paid. Reagan lost the clean deal. The farm got another hole dug under it. And the worst part was that he hadn't even touched the hay. He just waited until she made something worth taking. "Do we still deliver?" I asked. Reagan sat up straighter. "Yes. Then we go to the bank." Vance's warehouse sat off a county road beside a row of metal bins and a loading dock that smelled like feed dust and diesel. He was a square-built man with a gray beard, and he came out holding a clipboard, looking careful. Reagan got out before I had the truck fully in park. "Before we unload, I want the agreement confirmed under my name and the farm operating account." Vance glanced at me, then back at her. "Grady said Grady was handling financials." Reagan didn't blink. "Grady didn't cut this field. Grady didn't bail it. Grady didn't call you when the moisture ran high. I did." Vance looked uncomfortable. "I'm not trying to step in the middle of a family issue. This is a farm sale, and I'm the person delivering." I handed him the invoice copy. "Original terms are right there." He read it. Then he looked at the trailer, checked the load, and nodded slowly. "Hay looks good." Reagan's shoulders lowered just a little. "But payment won't release until tomorrow morning. If there's a dispute, my office will hold it." "That's fine," Reagan said. "Hold it until I give bank confirmation." We unloaded, got his signature on the delivery receipt, and left with less hay and more trouble. At the bank, Grady was already there. That told me everything. He stood near the front desk with his cap in his hand, talking too warmly to a woman behind the counter. When he saw Reagan walk in, his face changed first to surprise, then to annoyance, then to that easy smile. "Reagan," he said, "you didn't need to come all the way in." "Yes, I did." His eyes cut to me. "And you brought him?" I stopped near the door. "I'm here about my payment." Grady gave a short laugh. "Your payment? Sure, that's what this is." Reagan stepped between us. "I need to freeze any new payment changes on Rohr farm sales unless they carry my signature." The woman behind the counter looked from Reagan to Grady. "Mrs. Rohr, that may require documents from the cooperative office too, depending on how the sale agreement is listed." "Then we'll go there next." Grady's face got red around the cheeks. "You're embarrassing both of us." "No," she said. "You did that when you tried to move the hay money before the trailer left the yard." He lowered his voice. "You think he's doing this for free?" Reagan didn't move. Grady pointed at me. "He's been at my farm every day. You think people don't notice? You think they're not talking?" I felt heat rise in my neck, but Reagan turned her head slightly, just enough to stop me. Then Grady said the thing that made the whole room feel smaller. "You should have just kept him sweet until we got through this." Reagan went still, not weak, not shaken, still like a gate locking. I looked straight at Grady. I don't take payment through someone's wife. His mouth opened, then shut. Reagan didn't look at me, but I saw the line of her shoulders change. The bank manager came out a minute later, and Reagan laid everything on his desk: the original buyer agreement, the delivery receipt, her work plan, the unpaid equipment contract with my name on it, the auction list, the routing change Grady had tried to make. She spoke clearly, without dressing it up. "I want all new farm sale deposits held to the operating account unless I sign the change. I want no new equipment advances approved off projected hay or cattle income without my written approval. And I want this debt to Weston documented as first payment from the Vance hay sale." Grady sat across from her, jaw working. "You're choosing him over me." Reagan looked tired then. Not soft, just tired. "You chose debt over the farm first." He stared at her like he didn't know what to do with the sentence. He couldn't laugh it away. "The bank sent us to the county cooperative office to update the sale authorization." Grady followed in his truck, too proud to stay away and too angry to help. At the co-op, he tried one more time, telling the clerk it was his family name on the land. Reagan put both hands on the counter. "It's my name on the operating account," she said. "It's my signature on the buyer agreement, and it's my work in that field." The clerk checked the papers, made 2 calls, and stamped the update before closing. That sound, the stamp hitting paper, felt bigger than it should have. Grady walked out first. In the parking lot, he turned on me. "You happy now?" I shook my head. This isn't my fight to lead. Then I looked at Reagan. It's hers. She held the folder against her chest, but not like she was hiding behind it, like it was finally something solid. Grady waited for her to follow him. She didn't. Instead, she got into my truck and shut the door. The next morning, Vance's office released the payment under Reagan's name into the operating account, with my first payment scheduled exactly the way she had written it. The delivery went through. Not cleanly, not easily, but it went through, with Reagan in control. The first payment hit my account at 9:14 on a Tuesday morning. I know because I was under my own tractor changing a hydraulic hose when my phone buzzed on the concrete floor. I wiped my hand on a rag, checked the screen, and just stared at the number for a second. It wasn't everything Grady owed me, not close, but it was real money from a real sale, sent the way Reagan had written it. I called her right away. "You see it?" she asked. "I see it." "Good." There was noise behind her, metal clanging, men talking, an engine backing up. "Where are you?" I asked. "Auction yard already. I told you I had old equipment to sell." I sat up too fast and hit my shoulder on the tractor frame. "You went without me. You had your own work." "Reagan, what?" "That grain drill has a cracked hitch. Don't let them talk you down like it's falling apart." She went quiet for half a breath. "Then get over here and look mean beside it." By the time I got to the auction yard, she was standing near the old grain drill with a clipboard tucked under her arm, looking like she had slept 4 hours and still planned to win the day. The spare feed trailer was parked in the next row. A few men were circling it, kicking tires, acting like rust was a personal insult. Reagan saw me and tipped her chin toward the drill. "Tell me the worst thing they can use against it." "Paint looks bad, hitch cracked, left tire is older than it should be." "That all?" "That's enough." She nodded and walked straight over to the auction rep before he could come to her. I followed, but I didn't stand in front of her. The drill sold lower than she wanted, but higher than Grady expected. He showed up halfway through, of course. I spotted him near the coffee stand, hands in his pockets, watching the bidding like the money still had his name on it. When the feed trailer came up and sold clean, he walked over to Reagan with a tight smile. "Well," he said, "that'll help us breathe." Reagan held the receipt against her clipboard. "It'll help the farm breathe. That what we're calling it now?" She looked at him for a long second. "The auction money goes to the repair account and Weston's second payment. You saw the papers." Grady glanced at me. "Always Weston." I could have answered, but Reagan did first. "No, always the work. You just stopped recognizing it." He didn't yell. Grady wasn't that kind of man most days. He got smaller when cornered, meaner in quiet ways. He looked around the yard, saw who might be watching, then turned away like he had chosen to leave first. 2 days later, we finished the last hay delivery. That one nearly broke us. The baler slipped timing again, the truck ran hot on the county road, and one stack had to be reloaded because I didn't like how it leaned. Reagan argued with me for 5 full minutes, then climbed up and helped restack it anyway. At Vance's warehouse, the same gray-bearded buyer walked the load, checked 3 bales, and signed the receipt. "Good hay," he said. Reagan didn't smile until we were back in the truck. Then she leaned her head against the seat and closed her eyes. "Say it," I said. "Say what?" "That I was right about restacking." "No, you're thinking it." "I'm thinking you're expensive." "That's not the same thing." It's close." The final payment from that month's work didn't make anyone rich. It didn't fix the old loans. It didn't turn the Roar place back into what people remembered from 10 years before. But it kept the farm alive. The feed bill got paid down. My equipment debt got written properly. The bank had Reagan's signature locked into every new farm sale. The co-op had her listed as the authorized contact. Grady could still stomp around and call it his place, but he couldn't keep signing tomorrow away without her seeing it. For the first time since I had met her in that yard, Reagan had more than a plan. She had control. Grady moved out the next week. Not far, his brother had an empty room outside Canton, and Grady packed 2 bags, his fishing rods and half the pride he had left. He told Reagan she'd come begging when the place got too heavy. She stood on the porch while he loaded his truck. "No," she said, "I'll call a mechanic." He slammed the door harder than he needed to and drove off in a cloud of dust. I stayed away after that, not because I wanted to, because I did. There's a difference. For 30 days, Reagan and I had been shoulder to shoulder in fields, barns, trucks, offices, and sale yards. I had learned the way she counted under her breath when numbers got tight. She had learned that I got quiet when I was worried about money. We had shared gas station sandwiches, bad coffee, early mornings, late evenings, and enough trouble to make strangers feel like partners. But she was still coming out of a marriage, and I was still the man she owed me money to. So when she called about a loose belt on the baler, I sent her the part number. When she asked about a fair rate for custom cutting, I gave her the county average. When she texted one evening, "You don't have to vanish," I stared at the message for 10 minutes before answering. "I'm not vanishing, I'm keeping it clean." Her reply came a minute later. "I know." A few weeks passed. Then I drove back onto the Roar farm on a clear morning with no flatbed behind me, just my service truck, a replacement part on the seat, 2 coffees in the cup holders, and a printed work order clipped to a board. Reagan met me at the gate. She looked tired, but not worn down. Her boots were dusty, her sleeves were rolled up, and her hair was pulled back the same way it had been the morning she blocked me with the loader. Only now the yard didn't feel like it was holding its breath. I stepped out and handed her the coffee. "Official job," I said, holding up the work order. She took it and read the rate. "You brought paperwork." "Always." "And coffee? That's not on the invoice." She looked toward the machine shed where the baler sat waiting with one panel open. I nodded at the baler. "Still need that baler by Friday?" Reagan looked back at me, and this time the smile came easy. "Only if you're charging full price." I picked up my toolbox and walked beside her through the gate.